Mrs. Carney, do you have sound?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Hi, Rich.
Hi.
Sure. Hey, Jess, can you hear us?
Yes.
That's awful.
Could
All right, I'm muted, guys.
Ready to rock and roll. Order.
United States of America.
I'm going to skip advising the members of the audience. Superintendent's report to the board.
But no. All right, good evening, East Islip. It's nice, thank you very much, all of you, to join us tonight. My report really is about, we're going to be turning it over to Mr. Harrison in a minute, but we do have one topic to cover. In tonight's message, we had said that we are asking the community to send us questions about reopening in September. What are their questions? What are their concerns? Next week, you're going to receive a survey from us on Thursday. Because we want to hear from you before the task force meets to begin to plan. And again, the principals are sending letters on May 29th to discuss how you're going to have your elementary schools will be a pickup, and the middle school and high school, the students will be going in to clean out their lockers in an orderly fashion, because we want the kids to get used to coming back. And this way you'll have a chance to answer, ask questions and then answer some questions as we prepare, begin to prepare for September. But we will not be meeting and to prepare for September until we finish really closing out this year. I just want to make that clear to everybody. It gives me great pride at this point to introduce Mr. Harrison, who under unbelievably tough conditions this year has prepared a budget. We're very proud of it. You'll see that it is a 0% tax increase. And it's supported by reserves, and we are prepared in the event if we see catastrophic cuts by the governor. We are prepared to keep moving forward. We've said this over and over again. We don't budget year to year anymore. We try to look for 3 to 5 years down the road. We were certainly prepared. We were prepared for a stock market adjustment or crash. We did not anticipate a pandemic, but financially we have prepared ourselves for this. So again, I give Mr. Harrison a lot of credit. He has been on short notice, asked to do things when he doesn't fully have answers, but I think he's prepared an excellent budget, which will, get us through next year with our programs intact, and also provide the necessary computers if the COVID-19 virus flares up again and we have to go on a pause. So I'd like to thank everybody. There's a lot going on, and I'm going to turn the show over to Mr. Harrison. Thank you.
Presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dolan, members of the Board of Education, my colleagues, staff throughout the district that were very instrumental in crafting the budget being presented tonight. Tonight's meeting is called a budget hearing. It's to review the budget that was adopted last week by the Board of Education. It's a required meeting by New York State that we get together prior to the budget to talk about the details of the budget being voted on June 9th. So we'll go over the budget from the expense side, move over to the revenue side and discussing the tax levy, state aid, and revenue budget, and then finally, we'll talk about the contingent budget. This slide delineates some key initiatives that are in the budget going to vote for the 2020-21 school year. All these items are included in the budget that is being supported by a 0% tax levy increase. You see that we have 5 grade levels worth of one-to-one devices for $840,000. We're continuing the furniture initiative that was started this year. We have various equipment and furniture being purchased as well for athletics and for buildings and grounds. And we're starting a tree removal initiative that will be over 5 years to remove some of the trees in the district. Additionally, we're purchasing a new financial accounting software for Finance Manager. And again, all these items are in the budget at a 0% tax levy increase as compared to this year's tax levy. The first screen here on the expense side of the budget shows salary and benefits, which are going up 0.12% or $104,000. This increase would have been larger if we weren't helped out by lower medical insurance premiums for next year. On the instructional, you'll see that the budget is going down $107,000. That's because we have retirees going into next year that are being replaced with less salaried employees. There's been some increases on the custodial and staff that shows a $307,000 increase. So overall, salaries are relatively flat at 0.58% increase or $344,000. This is being mitigated in part by the reduction in medical expenses on the employee benefits side. So overall, salary benefits, $104,000 increase. The rest of the budget is going up 0.20% or $65,000. I'll just touch upon a few areas. The equipment that was mentioned on the first slide is going up $427,000. That includes your one-to-one devices, your furniture, bleachers, and various other equipment purchases. Transportation side you see is going down $345,000 because when we built the budget for 1920, we were anticipating higher cost in transportation because we went out to bid for transportation services, and we just completed the first year of a 5-year contract, but the results of the bid were lower than anticipated, so that's why it's decreasing. On the utility side, we're starting to see the impact of the solar program throughout the district. So far, we have data on the ConnectWatt solar, and we were able to reduce our overall utility budget by $33,000, mainly because of the energy performance contract and the solar initiative. Moving down to professional and technical, we have a number of things built in there. The district is required to go through lead testing. We have an annual visual inspection of the buildings, which is part of our buildings and grounds department. And we have an upgrade in the auditorium as well. Additionally, initiative is in that line also. The interfund transfer line you see is going down pretty dramatically. In the 1920 budget, you'll recall that we had the fitness room in the budget. So that was an expenditure from 1920, which is not being repeated for 2021. So that's no longer in the budget. So overall for next year, our budget is going up $170,000 or 0.14% to $120,505,188, an increase of 0.14%. The next two slides takes the same information and just tells you what percentage of the total budget is represented by each expenditure by object. So for instance, salary and benefits are staying relatively stable at 72.58% of the total budget. And the remaining part of the budget also remaining stable at 27.42%. The higher ticket items are your transportation, the debt service that supports the capital projects, as well as BOCES expenditure, which includes tuition for special education students. So when we calculate the tax levy, the allowable cap for 2020-21, it actually comes in at 3.83%. But as I said earlier, the tax levy that's supporting this budget is a 0% increase. So we're not taxing at the cap, we're actually well below the cap, and it's at the same tax levy as is for the 1920 school year. We could have went up as high as 3.83%, which would have been a $2.7 million increase to the tax levy. The bar graph here that's being shown now is giving you historical information about the actual tax levy versus the allowable cap. So as you see again for 2021, we're going out with a 0% increase. We could have been as high as 3.83%. There's been a trend of the district being historically below the allowable tax levy cap. 15-16, we could have went up as high as 2.3%, but we went out at 0.96%. And that trend just carried through to the 2020-21 school year. And this is the same information, just represented by dollars instead of percentages. 21, the tax levy that's supporting the budget is $2.7 million lower than what it could have been. And the gap between those two lines displays the amount of money that the district did not go out to tax at the allowable levy. So again, going back to 15-16, you see those gaps in each year going forward. This slide depicts state aid that was approved by New York State. Overall, state aid is going up 1.81% as compared to this year. The reason it's going up primarily is because the district has spent more money in the areas of transportation and building aid. So we're spending more money, as well as the expenses and special ed related tuition costs. So these are activity-based expenses, which vary based upon the expenses. So in the areas of special ed tuition, transportation, and building, we've been increasing our expenditures. So now we get more state aid because of that. Absent had a flat state aid budget. As you can see, foundation aid, which is the main driver of state aid, is flat in the governor's budget, the state improved budget, I should say. And that's not an area where the district does historically well in anyhow, but we didn't get any increase in that category into next year. The one thing I'd like to draw your attention to is there's a line pandemic adjustment. That's a reduction in the state aid budget due to the virus. Those monies are being retained at the state level. However, they're being backfilled by the federal level, called the federal CARES restoration. And you see that there with a decrease initially, but then a funding from the federal level. Now, historically, what I could say may happen based upon history is that once the state is off the hook with a payment such as this pandemic adjustment and the federal is picking it up, there's a good chance we may not see that reappear. That's an area of concern. Now, we have not yet heard about whether or not the governor is going to decrease state aid now that he has the ability to do so on a quarterly basis. But that could be as much as a $5.2 million decrease in state aid. We have not adjusted the budget, anticipating it. We're anticipating to be fully funded. Okay, the next slide shows the average assessments and tax rate of an average homeowner in the East Islip School District. So we have a home valued between $450,000 and $500,000. Applying the school tax rate going back to 13-14, you can see that the tax rate has been relatively stable. In 13-14 was $7,631, and projected next year is $7,640. Not factored into these numbers are the changes in assessments, so homestead versus non-homestead, as well as the refunds and credits that have been part of the tax cap compliance program. Since the district has remained in the cap, under the cap in all these years, taxpayers have gotten additional checks from the state representing savings because our district has been tax cap compliant. This pie chart represents the different drivers of revenue. As you can see, 60% of our revenue is derived from the tax base at $71,910,000, again, which is from this year's budget. We also have state aid making up roughly 33% of the budget, or $39.6 million. The 4% or $5.3 million on the top of the chart is representative of surplus that is being used to support the budget from our reserves. So we're putting in roughly 5 point to support the budget from the reserves. Should the district have to go to a contingent budget, either because of 2 failed votes or 1 failed vote and the decision by the board to go directly to a contingent budget, certain things have to take place. The only expenses that are included to in the budget are those that are absolutely necessary to operate and maintain the educational program, preserve the property, assure the health and safety of the students and staff. So what has to come out of the budget are all student supplies and equipment, and the tax levy that supports a contingent budget cannot be any higher than the current year's budget. So the takeaway here is we've already had a budget for next year that already has a tax levy equal to the current year's budget. So there's, on the tax levy side, there's really nothing to be gained should a budget be approved by the voters. We would be at the same tax levy, whether it's contingency or not, based upon the adopted budget by the Board of Education. Also, there'll be further restrictions on how we spend our money. We closely manage to make sure that the percentage that it represents of the total budget is no higher than the last approved budget. So this chart reflects a number of things. One, it talks about the budget for the 1920 school year at $120.3 million, the adopted budget of $120.5, and after subtracting those non-contingent items, the supplies and the administrative cost and the equipment, the contingent budget would be $116.7 million. But I'd like to draw your attention down to the total proposed school levy line E, and you can see that the tax levy would not change should the budget be voted down, since we already have a budget that's supported by a 0% tax levy. So looking at this chart, we have our tax levy information, which you see is the same next year as compared to this year. If you look at the percent increase of the levy over 5 years, it's averaging at 0.42%. And as I indicated, the adopted budget is $120.5 million, and we're using $5.3 million out of reserves to support that budget. Okay, so tonight we're here for the budget hearing. Ballots are due by 5 o'clock on June 9th. Voting is only by absentee ballot, which can be mailed back or dropped off here at the district office. So at this point, I'll open it up to any questions that the board may have.
Mr. Harrison, thank you very much. Great job, as you do every year. Quick question, as salaries and benefits, instructional, it was up around $140,000 in this budget. Wasn't that a negative number last year? If you remember?
So overall, salary and benefits going up 104,000.
Right, and last year wasn't negative or close to it, close to zero?
Well, there were a lot of things happening in this year's budget as compared to next year's budget. We're having pretty substantial increases in TRS and ERS rates going into this year's budget. And the one thing that's offsetting that is, again, the medical premiums, which are down close to $1 million.
But over a 3-year period, that's virtually a flat number.
Yeah, it's been pretty, yeah.
Thank you.
Great job. Fantastic. Everybody here in district office, Steve, excellent. I know this is your favorite night of the year too. It's over. No more budget presentations.
Steve, if I could ask a question, it's Jessica Carney.
Sure.
The budget newsletter that is just going to be on the district website, just because of delay, I guess, in the printing. Can you, I know, I'm sure you don't have it right in front of you, but could you just give a narrative to those budget drivers? So if somebody does go on the website and sees all the dollar figures associated with those budget initiatives, the one-on-one Chromebooks, it says 5 grade levels, the wireless initiative that'll support it. You know, I don't know if you know that list off the top of your head, but I think that it would just, and if any of those initiatives are associated with state aid.
There are a number of initiatives in the budget that we're talking about. The Chromebooks, there are 5 grade levels of Chromebooks. That's over $800,000 investment for the district. In addition, I'm sorry.
And the district decided it's going to be at the secondary level. That's what it's not clear in the budget newsletter.
Yeah, that'll be at the secondary level. The furniture would be at the elementary level. In the 1920 budget, we made an allocation for furniture at the middle school and high school. Cafeteria tables are throughout the district. That'll be part of the cafeteria fund, but we have to transfer that money from the general fund to the cafeteria fund. We have $100,000 in the budget to maintain the good work that's going on through the bond project of $100,000 to upkeep the maintenance and grounds throughout the district. In addition, we have the bleachers at $160,000. Those are for portable bleachers throughout the district that will complement the bond project work that's being done. The auditorium lighting upgrade of $110,000 is also complementary to the bond project. That's to complete the work being done at the high school auditorium. Again, the tree removal is throughout the district, and that's going to start and they're going to be continuing for probably about 5 years. The air handler, we have $200,000 being proposed in the budget. That'll be aided at 70%, so we would over time get roughly $140,000 of that money back to the district. And then again, we have some support of our buildings and grounds department in terms of vehicles for the turf, as well as a dump truck. In terms of state aid, the air handler units, the lead testing, the cafeteria tables will be offset by program revenues, and the Chromebooks, depending on how they're purchased, if it's through a BOCES consortium, those also may be aidable. John, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve, you said if the budget gets turned down and we can't spend the money on, let's say, the Chromebooks that we'd like to do for the kids, but we still do a zero tax levy increase, it's the same tax levy.
Yes.
What happens to the money that we were going to spend on the Chromebooks?
Well, they're removed from the budget, and because the tax levies remain the same, the amount in reserves is being decreased to support the budget because it's a smaller budget of 116 million change versus the 120 million.
Okay, so if the budget gets approved by the community, that money goes for Chromebooks. If it doesn't, it goes into our reserve.
Yes.
So Steve, would the financial software also be removed from the budget?
That's not a equipment or supply item, so that could remain in the budget.
Mhm.
There could be a decision to remove it, certainly, but it's not part of the contingency guidelines that it has to be removed. But it certainly could be if that was a decision made by the Board of Ed.
But the grounds vehicles and other things, those would be removed.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All good, right?
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
Thanks, everybody.
We should like spike it or something. At the end, right? Good job.
June 9th.
June 9th, right? That's out of your hands. All right. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda, item 6.1?
Motion?
Second.
The consent agenda passes. Are there any public comments, Mr. Dolan?
I don't have any of that. Do you have any?
Good evening. Hello.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Helen Mendez. I'm a building sub at Timber Point Elementary School. How are you guys today?
Hello,
Good,
Helen.
how are you?
Good, thank you. I'm just wondering, come September, if the pandemic is still going on, how is the hiring process going to be for rehiring the building subs or anything like that? I don't know if there's a hiring freeze now, since substitutes really won't be, needed if it's going to be virtual, online learning again. I'm not sure how that's going to go about. If there's anything going on yet, any question, anything set for that?
Helen, I think to answer that simply, we can't answer it right now.
Right.
But suffice it to say, whatever the plan is, the people do get sick. So whatever the setup is, I would envision that we would need substitute teachers, okay? We're going to move ahead slowly, carefully, step by step. That's like I said earlier in the meeting. The first step of the process is, and if you could be so kind, just email that question to myself and to JMANN, that's JMann at eischools.com.
Okay.
Because we really want to compile a list of everybody's questions, get that out to the public, then do a survey to find out, what the public's needs are, and by the middle of June, begin to plan. But, please don't make any assumptions, don't jump to conclusions. And honestly, everybody I've talked to, from adults to kids, would like to find a safe and healthy way to get back to school in September. So that's our goal. And but send that question in so we can put it we can publish an answer for you so everybody can see it. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Dolan. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Matt's the new Marie. No more questions.
No more questions.
All right. The Phil Montori part of the meeting. Unfortunately, Phil's not with us tonight. So if you're old, anyone have any old business? Be careful, Jess. It's old business now. Nothing? All right. Anybody have any new business? No new business.
Billy, did we have a sample ballot on the district website? Only because I believe that someone in the community only received 2 Spanish ballots and they don't speak Spanish. So in the event that were to happen to more than just one isolated member of the community, do we have them? Will that be on the district website, or would that be not a good idea because then it could be duplicated?
No, and just, we fielded a couple of questions today where we had that issue. And we're going to be working on these tomorrow, but I will ask that we'll put a sample ballot on the website. But remember, 1 ballot per envelope, so that, that they can't be duplicated. But that's a good idea. We'll put one up tomorrow. And, we stuffed 19,000 envelopes. So I think the ladies did yeoman's work and a great job. But I do believe we're going to have a couple of glitches, and we will, we'll get new ballots to the people. We'll get new directions and new ballots to the people that need them. So we'll put up a sample. Okay. We'll put up a sample first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay. There's also one other resident that had multiple ballots, but I guess it was a son and father. So who are community members supposed to call? Your office, Mr. Dolan?
Yes. Marie Rogers is the clerk of the board, and my office staff is supporting her. So any issues starting tomorrow, they should call. We fielded several calls today. We were able to solve the problem very quickly, so.
Great, thank you.
Any other new business? I don't want to go to it. The next Board of Education regular business meeting and annual budget vote and board election will be held on Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 at 9 p.m. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.